Hello, soldiers. Welcome to another episode of Soul Mission, where we believe that each of us has a profound purpose waiting to be unlocked. I'm your host, Ayah Rashid, and if you've not done so already, go ahead and give Mission of the Soul a follow on Instagram so you can follow along with our journey. But today we have a very special guest. Now, this person is the founder of Alchemy. He has worked with some of the greatest athletes in the world, and he's been on his own transformative journey of healing. And Alchemy is really interesting, which we'll go into, but the mission is to help empower people to overcome life's challenges, no matter how big, and to really unlock and step into their greatest self. So really prepared to be inspired for this next guest in the show. But Drew, welcome to Soul Mission Podcast. It's so great to have you on.
Yeah, thank you so much. I am very happy to be here, and I'm looking forward to our conversation and just, being able to provide any kind of information or inspiration or anything that's going to help your listeners. So
definitely amazing. Thank you. So tell me a bit about how your journey, what led you to create Alchemy, and kind of what you've done so far with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the company really, or the idea of the company really started in a not so great moment in my life. In 2020, my brother had passed away suddenly, and to be quite honest, it put me in a place where I had no idea what I was going to do. Everything that I thought was my purpose, everything that I thought my life was supposed to be, kind of vanished. And so for me, it was going through the healing process and, sitting with the fact that, my brother's no longer physically here, and trying to find a way to use that to be beneficial. Just through healing, it wasn't something that I tried to find. It was just through that process that this idea came to my mind of, as accessible as support is, it's not as accessible, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%.
I went to therapy and did all the things that you're supposed to do, and it just didn't work for me. I honestly I left therapy more hurt than I was healed. And for me, that was mind blowing because I didn't understand. And it just made me start to think about the fact that there are so many people, whether they're going through grief or something completely different, who need support, and they have that exact same experience.
Yeah.
But the only thing is that for them, they may believe that, okay, if that's not working, then I have nothing.
Mm.
And for me, that was more heartbreaking than anything else in the world, because the truth is, and the purpose behind Alchemy is for people to realize that the external stuff, as valuable as it can be, you don't need it. It's being able to learn the tools and the skills and everything that you need to help yourself. And for me, I wanted to create something that provided the resources that could teach people to be their own hero, essentially. And yes, if you need that external support, it's there, but it's not your lifeline, essentially.
Yeah.
And for me, that's kind of how it all formulated. And and my brother was also somebody who wanted to create something that would empower people and that would be of service. And so for me, it was just kind of a no-brainer where I was like, okay, well, I can create something that is going to serve him and something that he didn't get to build, but it's also going to be of service to other people. And yeah, that's kind of how it all unfolded.
When we go through really hard challenges in life, whether that's loss, whether that's just a really big hardship, that we can actually create something so beautiful from it. But I think it's tricky for some people to understand because, you found your purpose through that. And I found my purpose through loss as well, which is creating this podcast. And I think it's tricky. I don't know how you can kind of relate it to people that finding your purpose doesn't mean that you need to go through such a hard time.
Yeah.
But also it can provide, it can bring such beauty into your life as well,
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's very well said too. I mean, I think honestly, if you take hardship out of the equation, I would say probably more than 90% of people struggle to understand what their purpose is.
Yeah.
But I think it's mostly because they attach that to mean it's a job title, it's a career, it's something like that. Whereas your purpose is internal. And I think that internal purpose manifests into something that you're providing. And so I think when people start to rethink about how to navigate finding purpose, I think it would actually shift the struggle of it.
Yeah, definitely. One thing that I read on your website was that you said something like, I don't want Destination Alchemy to come out of business, but I want people to use it so much they don't need to use it anymore.
Yeah.
And I really love that.
Yeah, I mean, so my mission, and a lot of people get upset about it, but for me, like I want and I envision a world where therapists, counselors, coaches, and all of that, the need for it diminishes. Like that's something that I just genuinely from my heart want, because, and not from a negative place. I don't mean like I don't want you to have support. I just mean people get to a point where they know themselves and their strength so well that they don't need those things. It's more of a want. It's like, it would be nice to just check in with a counselor today or a therapist or a coach. But it's not like this dire need of, I am drowning and I need someone to save me. So for me, I just really want to create a world for everyone that they are truly in their power and and their greatness, to the highest level.
Yeah, definitely. Just a mentally healthy and, emotionally intelligent society, I think is really important.
Yeah.
How do you teach people or guide people to step into that greatness and unlock that potential and realize how many, I remember you spoke about levels of extraordinary. How do they reach that, and how do they get to that?
So, I mean, this is something that kind of always evolves as I evolve. But for me, something that I've started to really dive into and now implement is this idea of self-realization. And I think that when you master that, everything kind of is encapsulated, because when you go through self-realization, it's essentially like a 8 to 10 step process. And everything in that process is directed at you and your inner, like your internal self. It's not about anyone else or what's happening externally. So you're not focusing on the fact that, I mean, this is a hard thing to do, and it's obviously more in depth of an explanation than this, but for the sake of time, like you're essentially detaching yourself from your external circumstance. So the fact that, for example, I use myself as an example. For the example of, my brother passing, I have to detach myself from that reality, because to be honest, that is not the thing that is the problem. It's something inside of myself that needs to be transformed and worked on. And that is just the external thing that is forcing me to look at it.
Would you say that's how you dealt with loss? You detached yourself from it?
Not so. I'll be careful when I say detached, because some people may take that to mean like I ignored the fact that.
Yeah.
When I
I think maybe
say detach, I mean you are essentially like, okay, detachment maybe not the word. Let's say disassociate. So you are stepping out of the situation and looking from it objectively.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when people start to understand that, and this is what I try to kind of instill in people, is that everything that happens in your life, and I know this is a hard pill to swallow. It was a hard pill for me to swallow, but everything that happens in your life is designed for your greatest benefit. And the moment you come to terms with that, everything starts to shift. And it doesn't have to be as daunting as people think it does.
Yeah.
And so this is a very roundabout answer, but it's really just disassociating yourself from the fact that that is just an external thing that is forcing you to look at what's going on inside. Because there's something inside of you that is not in alignment. There's something inside of you that is taking you away from what you're meant to be doing in this life. And that thing, as painful as it may be, and it has to be that painful. And I think when people start to understand, I like to call it the Phoenix effect, right? So like basically we become so blinded and disconnected from ourselves in life that we're these events or moments are placed in our life that kind of burn your world to ash. Like that's I know that's a harsh way
There's
to
no
say it,
other, it
but
brings you to your knees, basically.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's not out of a place of it's no bad intention behind it. It's just it's trying to wake you up to the fact that you are out of alignment. And when you start to realize that, you start to see the lessons of what is there. Like in your journey, right? You saw the lessons of that passing. It's helped you elevate to a greater version of yourself. And the question I always ask is, if that thing did not happen, would you be the person that you are today?
No, not in the slightest.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like that question alone, like sets off a light bulb for most
Yeah.
people because it's like, oh my God, I
Yeah.
probably would not be. And you
Yeah.
can tie it to anything. Would you be as successful as you are today if that one thing that literally tore your world apart didn't happen? And so when people start to really think from that perspective, and that's what I encourage people to do, the situation kind of transforms on its own. There's not a whole lot of effort that has to come from yourself. It's really just awareness and being honest with yourself and saying, okay, this is what happened, but this is not a concrete permanent situation. It's just a part of your process.
I mean, that kind of leads on to the quote of, I think everything happens for you, not to you.
Exactly.
Which I always love remembering. If we were to think about it, if anyone listening, and they haven't gone through a hardship, if we think about it kind of in like, let's say job wise, if you lose your job, that door has closed. That might be a really hard pill for you to swallow, but that door has closed for this amazing new opportunity to open, you know?
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
100% accurate. That's what I said. Like it could be the most minute thing
Yeah.
to the most heartbreaking thing in the world.
Mm.
But the truth is still going to be the same. It's happening to elevate you to some degree, even if it's just a small step. But it's
Yeah.
still helping you to get better and be more in alignment with your greatness.
Mm. Talk to me about moments of impact.
Okay. So for me, the reason I use that term, people often talk about we have all these defining moments in life. And honestly, I do not agree with that at all. And so I had to try to come up with a way to differentiate the two because the truth is moments of impact, it kind of ties into what I was just saying. These moments come to teach you something and it's up to you to define that moment, not for it to define you. And so the moment of impact is the trigger or the source of what's like poking at you to say, hey, like I'm here, what are we doing? And it's up to you to ignore it and allow it to just place some form of definition onto your life. Or you say, okay, this is what's happening. This is what this means. This is what we're doing. And
Mm.
you define it and give it the power. The power isn't taken from you. And I think that's the key difference is that when you say that this was a defining moment, you're giving power to the moment and essentially releasing your own power. You're making yourself powerless. Whereas when you're looking from the standpoint of moments of impact, you are embracing your power and saying, no, I'm in charge of my life and what this means, even though if it's painful or hard.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I look at it.
About navigating a hardship or a challenge, whether it's big or small, but being able to have the power to navigate it. But I think that's a mindset in itself that people don't always know how to navigate it and how to use something hard as a means to make them better, which I
Mhm.
think a lot of people find hard doing. And it does take a lot of effort and a lot of mindset and a lot of practice to actually use a situation to help them excel.
Yeah. I think it is hard. Like I will not diminish that, but I think the issue really is in the fact that people think that there's this right or wrong way to do things, and there's
Mm.
really not. I try to steer away from saying that's right or that's wrong,
Mm.
because what works for me may not work for you, and what works for you may not work for me, and that's perfectly fine. Um, and I think if people would, especially for your listeners, this could be helpful, is that if you let go of the how, everything kind of becomes a little bit easier, because you don't always have to have the answer. The the key is to have the willingness. That's it. If you're willing to learn, if you're willing to accept the unknown and just taking one step at a time and figuring it out as you go and trusting yourself, that's all you need. All you need is will. That's having the willingness. You don't have to know how you're going to overcome it, because that alone is, at least it was for me, that was incredibly overwhelming. When I would sit and think, how am I supposed to deal with this? It makes you want to shut down.
Mm. It's like for anything, if you've got like a huge project to do, you're not going to
Mhm.
sit there going, how am I going to do this? It's just about baby steps, and eventually you'll get there. But
Mhm.
you have to walk before you run, you know?
Exactly. So I think in any aspect of life, if you just let go of the how and just be willing to take the steps, the how starts to unfold. You don't have to have that answer. You just have to be willing to move forward, whatever that looks like.
Yeah, really, really interesting. I think when I was kind of reading the stuff that you do as well, to
Hmm.
tap into your potential, because I guess people know when they've got a lot of potential. They know that they maybe want to, do greater good in the world. They want to, help the world, or they want to become like a CEO. They know that they've got the potential to do amazing things. How do people, if someone was to listen to this podcast and wake up tomorrow, what would the first thing that they do be to start that routine, to start almost changing their lives?
Yeah. So before I answer that, I just want to say everyone has the same amount of potential.
Okay.
Everyone has limitless potential. And I
Mm.
think that's something people have to understand, is that just because, and how do I say this? Just because someone, let's say you have a CEO, right?
I think we made a
That just may,
comparison of a CEO versus a chef.
yeah,
I think we said that last time.
yeah. So if you have this, right, neither is better or worse.
No.
That's just their destiny. That is what their potential is meant to be. But there's no diminishment in their level of potential. And that's one thing I want people to understand, is that you have limitless potential, and what you can do in this world, there's no limit to that. But to answer your question, if someone to tap into that potential, I mean, there's so many ways that you can do that, right? But one thing, since it's kind of in line with what we've been saying, is one thing is to kind of shift your approach to goals. So a lot of the time we set outcome oriented goals, which are important. I'm not saying they're not. But from this standpoint, it's important to set process oriented goals. So when I say that, it means basically you're putting your focus on the steps that you're taking, not where you're going to end up. Because you already have in your mind, this is my goal. So you set that goal and you leave it. Now you need to break that goal down and say, okay, what steps do I need to take to get there? Your way that you set up your goals needs to be focused on the process of that. Because when you focus on the end result, it takes you away from the journey. And the journey itself is where you're going to get all the lessons and everything that you need to get to that end result. And so if you're so focused on the end result, you miss all the lessons and everything that you're going to need. And no matter how much you're working and all the things, and you're like, oh, I'm almost there, I'm getting to my destination, all of these things, you've missed all the ingredients that you need to be successful there. And so I think that's one thing that people can implement, I mean, right away. And you just focus on the fact of, okay, today, this is what I'm doing. This is my process. And you make that process perfect, you
Yeah.
know, and you perfect that aspect of the day. And then the next day, you focus on the process, because 1 + 1 is 2,
Yeah.
right? No matter how you look at it. When you set process oriented goals, that's what it is.
Yeah,
You just
definitely.
keep adding one.
Yeah, step by step. I did a talk at a school the other week, and I was trying to say to the kids that you have to think big and act small. you know, and you have to just focus on the task at hand. And the eventually, without even realizing, you would have reached that goal, but you wouldn't have realized because you're doing such
Yeah.
small steps that it's like, oh my God, I'm here now. And I think people, you know, I think a lot of people that are trying to reach their goals or achieve their dreams can get really kind of scared because it's daunting. If you've got such big aspirations, it's like, how do I get there? But so you say that it's small steps at a time, just focusing on the task at hand.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe the steps, some days, maybe the steps are big. I'm not, it
Yeah.
doesn't always have to be small, but the focus needs to be on those steps. Because, and just to say, that doesn't mean you're not going to make mistakes. Well, you're 99% sure you're going to, but that's where the lessons come so that you can fix whatever needs to be fixed and then keep moving.
Yeah. What do you think about consistency? Because I've got a really weird relationship with consistency. Like
Okay.
I've got this idea of if I slack or if I don't do as
Hmm.
much work as I was meant to do, I feel so demotivated and disappointed in myself. So I'm
Yeah.
like, I should be consistent every single day, and then I end up getting exhausted and burnt out. So what is your view on consistency?
I like this question actually. So, I mean, especially in the personal development world, right? You hear consistency, consistency, this is the key, this is the key. But I think, which I'm not disagreeing with it yet. With yes, you need to be consistent, but there is sort of a middle ground. Like you said, sometimes you feel like you get burnt out.
Mm,
And the thing is, you have to really pay attention to yourself. It's a lot of self-awareness. Because yes, if you, let's just say, okay, we go back to, since we're talking about goals, you have a certain goal. You do know that in order to get there, there are certain steps you have to take. And if you don't take them, I mean, you kind of be stuck. But being consistent doesn't necessarily mean that you have to work from 6 a.m. to 12 a.m., right? You're hurting yourself more than you're helping yourself. And I think it's just finding that balance of how are you the most effective? If you're the most effective for an hour, then you're consistent and persistent for that hour. And then you step away and do whatever else. And then you come back to it. You just have to be honest with you, I think it's really just being aware of yourself and knowing yourself and saying, okay, how do I work best? How am I the most effective? And that's the only thing that matters. We get caught up in all the noise of what everyone else is doing.
yeah,
And I'm the first one to say that honestly, it does like ignore it
yeah,
because, and yes, okay, you have these billionaires and you're like, I want to, what they've done works for them. But it works for them, but it doesn't have to be your routine or your approach. And so even if you feel like, oh, I have to get up at 5 a.m. to be successful and be consistent, do you really feel that way? Or is that just what society has told you? And so I think it's really just coming down to, understanding yourself, but also being compassionate with yourself. Like you said, you sometimes end up in burnout. Be compassionate with yourself. Look at the things that you've accomplished for the day. It's like, okay, have I really put in the best that I can? If you answered yes, then take a break. I mean, I think people think there's this bad energy around, oh, I can't take breaks. I
yeah.
can't relax. I can't do these things if I want to be successful. But the thing is, if you're burnt out and you can't think straight, how are you going to be successful anyways?
So true. So true.
So, I mean, yes, you have to be consistent and you have to show up every day, but you also have to be able to show up as the best version of you. And so let's just use podcasting as an example, right? Let's say you want to have the number one podcast globally and touching all these people. And so you decide, okay, I'm going to do like 8 podcasts in a day. I mean, how effective is that message going to be if you're talking to 8 people a day for like 2 hours? I mean,
I
you know
fall
what I mean?
asleep on the
Yeah.
podcast.
But I'm just saying, and the energy that you're bringing to people is not gonna be in alignment with who you are, and it's not gonna be in alignment with your mission.
Mm.
And so you're putting yourself in a situation that is to your detriment, just because you think that's the way that you're supposed to work.
Mm.
And I
Mm.
think when you start to understand that, and you ignore, this is a harsh thing to say because I'm in the personal development world, but to be honest with you, I ignore a lot of it
Yeah.
because it's just noise. Personal development to me is understanding you. I don't care how successful someone is or what expert they're in, including myself. No one understands you better than you, no matter how much education anyone has. And so when you understand yourself and know this is what works for me, then do that because it will get you to where you want to go.
Yeah, definitely. And that's so interesting, everything that you were saying, because I think hustle culture, grinding culture has become so prevalent. But obviously, that you see some people, I guess on social media, that are like my 5 to 9 before my 9 to 5, and they're doing that every single day. And it's amazing. But I think people shouldn't get confused because that could lead to burnout. And I was just recently doing a podcast episode on burnout. So I think it's having that happy medium and knowing that the grinding and hustle culture, do it as much as you want, but know that that isn't always the way that's going to lead to success, basically.
Right. It's not necessarily the standard.
No.
That's the best way to look at it. And I mean, if that's the route you want to take, go for it.
Tell me about high performance psychology.
Okay, what specifically would you like to know about it?
I mean, what is there having a certain kind of psychology or DNA or like a mindset that is what high performance people have? What makes a high performance person? You feel like you aren't high performance. How do you get there?
Yeah, so for me, I got into it actually on the sports side of things. That's when I was introduced to it.
Yes.
And it was really teaching me about the psychological aspect of like elite athletes, right? But if you take it away from sports, and for me, and when I combine my other certifications and stuff, the way that I look at high performance is really just it's really human potential. It's your potential. It's tapping into that, but optimizing it. So by performance psychology, right? If you think of the mentality of an elite athlete on a day-to-day basis, an athlete is, if they're at a high level, I should say, not every athlete, but if you're at an elite level, you have to be in a position where no matter what is going on, you are performing at your optimal level. No matter what's happening in your life, no matter what's happening in your head, all of that, you have to be able to shut it off and perform, which is obviously a very challenging thing to do. And that's why you see more and more, there's a lot of mental health issues in sports, especially professional athletes. It's because the support or the lack of support, I mean, they're trying to build it up more, but the lack of support that they have when those things happen, for example, injuries or, a loved one passes away or all these things, and they're essentially, for lack of a better term, like they're trained to be a machine. And the way that I look at high performance psychology is basically, if it's done like holistically, I know some people may not like that word, but if it's done holistically, you're teaching the athlete to do what they need to do, but in a way that is not hindering them as a person. It's detaching or separating the athlete and the person and dealing with the person.
Yeah.
Because if you deal with the person and separate the fact that they're this world-class athlete and you focus on what are your triggers, what are the things that are hindering you, what makes you tick, what is taking you out of your optimal state. It's understanding all these things, understanding the things that make them work efficiently, whether it's in training or matches or whatever. You're understanding the entire being. And when you, as a coach or a psychologist or whoever, when you understand that and teach them to understand that, separate apart from them being an athlete, just them as a person, when you focus on those things and fine tune those things and give them the tools to essentially healthily deal with those things when they come up, when they transition into the role of being an elite athlete, they are able to manage whatever comes their way, but in a way that's not harming them. And this is just my perception of high performance psychology and what I've learned is that when you treat the athlete as just a human being and take them out of the role of athlete, you actually elevate their ability to perform.
Mm.
And that's what high performance psychology is teaching people, whether you're an athlete or not, right? It's dealing with the human being, not your role that you play on a day-to-day basis, and understanding every aspect of that being. What makes them tick emotionally, what makes them tick mentally, physically, all of these things, what causes them to crumble. And you can transform those things. When they step into that role of whatever it is, whether you're CEO, athlete, entrepreneur, whatever, your ability to perform elevates. And I personally believe everyone should kind of approach life in that way. And that's kind of why I got into it, because I wanted to step away from sports, but I am very fascinated by the mentality of an athlete. And I think it's a mindset that a lot of people can learn from and can be effective if it's kind of guided properly.
I mean, it occurred to me that no matter what they're going through, they have to perform at their best. You know, they have to dissociate from their personal life when they're playing. And I guess sometimes, would you say, I mean, I'm not sure, but is there ever a time where an athlete's personal life does affect their performance? I mean, how do they deal with that? Because that's, you know, they're being watched by millions of people. It affects if they get picked in the next, you know, tournament or anything like that. So there's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, it is a lot of pressure. I mean, the thing is, there are times when it does affect a player. You know, from my experience with conversations with athletes, or even when I was an athlete, it's like when you can't turn it off, because a lot of the times it's not, you don't have the tools, you're just kind of just ignoring it. But when you can't do that, when you step onto the field or the court or whatever sport you play, right, it takes over. At least for me, when I'm playing sport, it's kind of being in like a meditation. And so everything kind of slaps you in the face if you're not dealing with whatever's going on. There was one athlete, and he had got injured, and he was out for pretty much an entire season.
Wow.
And you know, he was saying to me that even though he's back and everything, he's like, I'm terrified. Every time I step onto the field, I think about that injury and what happened. It's debilitating, and it is. I mean, if you don't have the tools to like deal with it, it can. I mean, this is drastic, but it can end a career because you're like, you just get paralyzed in the trauma of it.
Yeah, by association almost. That's really interesting. There's so many facets to it.
Yeah, no,
Athletes
there
actually
is. I
have
mean, I could talk about it forever. Like, it's very, yeah, it is complex, but at the same time, when you start to understand it, it's actually very simple. If it's taught properly, anyone can implement that, because I think it can be very beneficial for everyone.
Who would you say is your most inspirational athlete that you look up to?
I mean, my role model from growing up has always been David Beckham.
Really? Why is that?
I just always respected how he carried himself. I mean, yeah, he's a great athlete, but just the way he carried himself outside of sport and everything, I just admired that. And so he's always been someone that I've looked up to. I know there was a Netflix documentary that came out on him. You can see just the emotional intelligence and the mental fortitude he had to have at such a young age to maneuver the things that he was faced with. If you really watch it to learn, and I think that's something to emphasize, like you're watching to learn, you can learn a lot from that.
Because I have just really started getting back into morning routines. When we last spoke, we spoke about kind of saying your morning mantras, checking on a scale of 0 to 10. Are those things that you implement into your daily routine, or you advise people to have a solid kind of routine in that stage before just waking up and starting the day?
Yeah, I mean, my routine, since we last spoke, my routine has shifted a bit, but I mean, morning routines on a whole, regardless of what they look like, are important because it sets the tone for the day. You know, the morning routine we had talked about was more so like for people when they're in a really tough space and they need that intense like structure.
Yeah.
To say, okay, this is where you need to be, this is what you need to do step by step by step. But for me, if I had to say, like, if there were key things that needed to be implemented in a routine, it's just one, obviously you want to check in with yourself. whatever that means to you, whether that's just mentally, in your heart, in your soul, whatever you believe in, that is really important to start your day. Just understand, like, where am I at? How am I feeling? Where's my mind at? And when you understand that, you can do things to shift that so that you have a productive day, whatever that looks like. And another thing would be making sure that you do something. For me, the most powerful thing to do is to do something that stems from the act of love, because that's like the most powerful energy we can put out. And I know it's a kind of weird thing to do, but I encourage people to obviously do an act of love for themselves. Because the thing is, and I think what people are starting to realize more and more is that when your level of self-love is where it needs to be, the way that you are and show up in life and every day is far better than when your self-love is non-existent.
What would an act of self-love be?
Yeah, so it's different for everyone. It can be literally, I think we had talked about this. It could be like going in the mirror and playing a song and singing it to yourself, and like really looking at yourself and feeling like doing it with meaning and purpose of that love. It could be writing. Like for me, I love to write. So my morning routine now is I sit down and spend like 15 to 20 minutes just writing and being grateful for that. But an act of love can look like anything. There's no, like I said, there's no right or wrong, but whatever you can do that makes you feel like you feel the love that you have for yourself. It could literally be just going for a walk outside, and that's the way that you show love to yourself. I mean, there's so many ways you can do it. So acts of love, checking in with yourself. And the third thing is just getting in touch with your sense of gratitude for, and I know people talk about this all the time, like gratitude is so important, but gratitude for the potential. What I mean by that is it's so, especially if you're going through hard times, right? To find gratitude in something in the present moment, it's like, oh, this is a waste of time. And to be honest with you, if you're in a lot of pain, that can intensify the pain sometimes, because a lot of the time you kind of drift to everything that's going on and all of that. And when I say gratitude to the potential, I mean, if you could have a perfect moment right now, what does that look like? And be grateful for that. Meaning, like, you act as if that is the moment that you're experiencing in this moment.
Because your mind can't tell the difference, can it?
It can't. No. If you do it truly from your heart, then no. If you're just like, I'm going through the motions, like, you need to really feel it. What I do now is after I do my writing, I then go and get a journal and I write about that moment. The best way for people maybe to associate it with is like, think of it as writing a love letter to your soulmate. That's the amount of love you want to have when you're writing. And you're literally just saying, thank you for XYZ, whatever that perfect moment looks like. It could be literally that you are sitting on a beach, looking at the sunset with your dog next to you. I mean, it doesn't have to be anything extravagant, but whatever moment that you feel is going to give you that sense of love and peace and just absolute happiness. Because those are the things that you may want to feel. And so something that could help with that is, before you start writing that, is what I do is at the top of my journal, I write, today I am, and I come up with 3 to 5 things of that. So it could be, today I'm love, I'm kindness, and I am peace, right? And after you have those 3 things, what you write below is going to encapsulate that. And you're painting that picture of you're in love and you're in peace and you are kindness. And that's why I say you have to really feel it, because when you feel it, after you've written that, that's what you feel for the day.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it is really powerful. I mean, it sounds like such a simple thing. It's like, how is that supposed to help me? But when I started to do that, it shifted like how my mornings go and how the rest of my day goes. And so I think if you can do that, and something I do also, which kind of amplifies it, is after I've written it, I read it out loud and just I just hear the words. And I put myself in that moment. I feel like I'm in that moment. That's what I'm living. And I'm like, oh, okay, life is great.
I mean, it's almost like visualization, isn't it? I think if people
Yeah,
find meditation hard to do, and I find meditation hard to do, but I feel like that's a step, an easier step of doing it. Is just take literally 30 seconds to be in wherever you feel is a perfect place and then write it down. I think that's amazing.
yeah. And like some people find it hard to visualize as well. It's like you said, I never really actually thought about it, but if visualization is really difficult for you, this is like the next best thing because you're seeing the words. So even if you can't like really see it, you can kind of see it.
I think having those really little small rituals that you have in the morning, and if anyone that's listening just has one, even just one that
Hmm.
they do, whether that's, you know, writing something down, like I love journaling as well, or spending 30 seconds thinking of something, or having
Hmm.
a cold shower, or just doing those little steps,
Something.
I think enhances your kind of frequency for the day. It like sets it to a tone
Yeah.
that it needs to be at. So I think that's really important.
No, I agree. And that's why I said like routines can, I mean, there's no right or wrong morning
No.
routine, but I do agree with you, like having that ritual of, okay, I get up and knowing that you're going to do something that is going to shift how you're feeling. Even if you wake up and you feel good, you're going to feel even better. Or if you wake up and you feel like crap, well, now you're going to feel great. So I agree with you.
One thing that I actually read recently, it was saying how as adults we forget to open up that childlikeness in us. So like in
Yeah.
the morning or whenever you need to, but in the morning just to start your day, even watch something funny, you know, make yourself laugh, watch
Yeah.
you know, The Office or something that will just make you, you know, feel good. So you have that childlike aspect to yourself still, you know?
No, that's beautiful. I agree. I think we all need to be a child a little bit sometimes.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
definitely am.
Yeah. Good. You have to keep it that
But
way. That's the
yeah,
best thing to do.
yeah, but I agree. I think we all need to kind of tap into that again, and just allow ourselves to kind of play and just have fun. There's
Have
nothing wrong with
fun.
it. Yeah.
Definitely. And I got one more thing that I kind of want to talk about is your shamanic healing.
Yeah.
Tell me a bit about that.
I would say it was actually this, I think it was the same year that my brother had passed away. I went to Spain. I came across this shaman and we just honestly kind of hit it off. Like we had one conversation and just his approach to life, it was just really refreshing. And I think because I had that negative experience with therapists and all these things, I was just like, okay, I'm all open to whatever.
Yeah.
I honestly recommend anyone, regardless of what your religion or anything is, just having a conversation with someone. It doesn't have to be a shaman, but someone who is like a spiritual teacher or healer or something.
Yeah.
Their perspective on life and the mind and what we're capable of, all these things is just a beautiful conversation, honestly. But for me, he was kind of the tipping point of what kind of led me into wanting to dive more into this world of things because he, I would say, more taught me about the potential that we all have more than any certification or course that I ever did. Um, and he's the one that kind of instilled in me is like, there are literally limits don't exist. He's like, we've created that word and we've created this boundary. He said, but if everyone really gets back to their core, like who they are at their core, if they get back to their essence of who they are, they would they wouldn't even be able to comprehend why they think there are limitations. Yeah, and it was just having conversations with him, and that's what kind of got me into meditation. He was kind of also the first person that gave me some form of relief in my healing. It was probably the most powerful moment of my life because I would say if I didn't meet him, I think a lot of the other things wouldn't have happened. And so just, yeah, I mean, I don't even know how to put it into words, the things that,
Sometimes you can't. Sometimes
yeah,
it's just that I've spoken to a yogi before, and the way that they think is like you can't even almost explain it, you know, and it almost
yeah,
seems so sacred.
yeah.
Don't know how to
To
explain it.
explain, yeah, just the way that he loves and the way that he treats people and all these things, you start to learn just how to be better because we stay in touch every once in a while. And I remember when I was going through therapy and everything, and I sent him a message, and I was honestly, I feel like crap. I don't understand. They're supposed to be helping me and blah blah blah. And he was like, "Okay, what happened?" Basically, the therapist told me, "I don't really know how to help you. You're doing everything that I would tell you to do. And then, oh, you need to find something to love again," or something like that. Now,
Not
he
working
said to
for
me
me.
something to me that I never really thought about. And this is not to bash therapists or anything like that. This is just my experience. But he was like, sometimes, therapists are so by the book that they forget about the compassion. And when he said that to me, it kind of just is kind of like what I said in the beginning. It kind of ignited that light of, it's true. That's why people feel so helpless. They get an interaction like that from someone who they look to as support,
Yeah.
and they just kind of kick you while you're down kind of thing. And
Yeah.
and when he
Did
said
that
that
have
to
been
me,
your moment of impact?
it was one of them, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Because I could have just been like, all right, well,
Mm.
I guess this is where I'm going to be for the rest of my
Yeah.
life.
Forever.
So yeah, I think if your listeners are open to it, I highly recommend doing
Yeah.
shamanic healing and just experiencing it. It's honestly not that woo woo as people think it is. It's a meditation essentially. The shaman is just working on a soul level essentially
Mm.
and healing what needs to be healed. And like I said, it's not it's external thing that is the issue. And that's why I said that is because I learned that from him. That's not the issue. There's something internally that is not right, and that's what you need to heal. And
I
so for
find that
me,
so
that
hard to understand, but I
it,
get
I
it,
mean,
but
it
I don't
is,
get it.
it is hard to understand. Like, to be honest with you, when I first was talking to him, I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
whatever. He was like, yeah, yeah, we'll heal everything. And then I'm like, but it's just something that you have to experience because
Yeah.
you just feel like you're meditating. Like, you don't feel anything happening or whatever. I mean, you might have, if you're a visual person, you might have visualizations and that kind of stuff, and it can bring up emotions, but it's not like you feel pain or whatever. It's
Yeah.
literally like a meditation and you're healing your soul, essentially. And after I did that, is every session that I did with him, I felt just lighter. I could not explain it. I don't know how this is happening, but okay, I'm just working with it. It's fine. And the more that I learned from him and just kept working with him, the more I was just like, okay. So essentially, you're not treating the physical being, you're treating the spiritual being.
That
That's the
makes
best
sense.
way.
Yeah.
That's the best way to explain it. And to be honest with you, I believe, and that's kind of how I approach coaching now, is that the physical is not, and I don't mean this badly, but that's not the important thing. Your spiritual being is what is going to manifest the physical. So if you are not well internally, you're not going to be well physically. And that's honestly what shamanic healing is. That I think is the best approach to personal development. You talked a lot about it's mindset. But the mindset shifts when you shift inside. It's funny. I was having a conversation with a friend the other day about this because she asked me about, heart and mind and all these things and what's the difference. I said, well, the thing is, and this is just my perspective, so I'm not saying it's right, but my perspective is that the energy that's inside of you, whether you say that's your heart or your soul or whatever, your core essence, right? That is your energy. That's the energy that makes everything else function. So the
Mm.
energy that goes to your heart, that comes from your essence. The energy that goes to your brain, that comes from your essence, right? But the brain itself it's a human form. It's a physical thing. Your heart is a physical thing. And so anything physical, you can alter it. I guess that's the best way to describe it. Like, you can't alter your soul. The essence of it, what it's made up of, you can't
Yeah.
change that. And so when the human side of us takes over, that's when the energy shifts in the brain and the heart and those things.
Mm.
And so when we are detached from who we are, the thoughts are going to be more so on the negative because we're detached from the source, which is a positive energy.
Yeah.
And so that's why I say, like, when you heal the internal, this stuff takes care of itself.
It's a great way to look at it.
Yeah.
Really interesting. Humans are just so complex. And
I
I don't
mean,
think
it's
people
more complex
realize.
than that, but to give a short description like
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
that's the way that I view
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, definitely. We just have so many levels to ourselves. But I think that that's a really good explanation. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've got one last question, and
Yeah,
it
of
would
course.
be, what advice would you give to your younger self?
One thing that came up to me a lot throughout my healing and all of that was that I have the strength. Like, and even throughout my journey, I'm like, okay, that's great and all, but like this is a lot.
Yeah.
So I guess for me, like the message that I would give myself is that, no matter what you're met with, because there's going to be some things that are going to make you question pretty much everything. Just know that you do have the strength and the capacity to come out the other side better than where you were before. But also just stay in alignment with who you are and don't get, discouraged, and don't let yourself be diminished by what people are saying or what people think your process is supposed to look like.
Mm.
And I guess that would be the message that I would give myself.
I love that. That's really special. That is special. What reminds me of that is the quote of "This too shall pass," is that, every hardship that we go through, every single human being in the world goes through hardships. And I think people underestimate how strong they are. But
Yeah.
we are able to get through a hell of a lot without even realizing.
Yeah.
And I think once you do it, you have a really beautiful kind of connection with yourself. And that's when people should give themselves a hug.
Yeah.
You know?
I love that. Yeah, I agree. I think, and people they want the hardship to go away, but something that I would encourage, people to look at, especially, everyone listening, is that your hardship, and I'm not saying it's not painful, I'm not saying it's not heartbreaking, but the person that you're going to become on the other side of that is going to be, and I mean, you're already incredible, but you're going to be a more elevated and more incredible person and version of yourself. And if you just like hold on to that versus the pain that you're feeling now, it will take you to the other side.
Amazing. I couldn't agree more. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah,
Thank you so
absolutely.
much. Thank you. I mean, as we wrap up another incredible episode of Soul Mission, that was honestly such an insightful and incredible and raw conversation. I think so many people would gain so much from your journey, your story. Like, you have so much knowledge on so many things, and it's just amazing. And I hope that everyone has gained something from this. And all my soldiers, remember, your mission is a powerful force of good in the world, and your mission matters. So until we meet again, peace, love, and happiness to all my soldiers. And again, thank you so much, Drew. This has been an incredible conversation.
Yes, thank you so much. It's been grateful that I was able to share, and just, hopefully somebody who's listening can take even just a small bit of it and be helpful to them. So,
100%.